Okay, so this just happened to me, and I'm sure that I will not be able to sleep. My boyfriend is not answering his phone, and I need to get this out. My company organized an event for the clients and the staff at a luxury hotel. Everyone partied, and I got into my room an hour ago. It's about 3:30 in the morning here. I don't know. 15 minutes ago, a guy entered my room with a bottle of water. It woke me up and I was really scared. He said someone had called from my room to order a bottle of sparkling water. A weird explanation. There is a minibar and there is a corridor in the room before entering where I'm in the bed. So basically, I'm half naked in my bed. He comes closer to me at the level of the table, apologizing for the inconvenience, but he's still here. And I kid you not, he starts talking to me, saying how he's going to be in trouble, etc., and how somebody called and he is so sorry, and the others got in the hotel super drunk and it must have been a mistake. I swear that he's been standing super close to my bed for about 5 minutes, and I was so shocked I was just saying, No, it's okay. I just got scared, really, no problem, just get out of here. Well, he doesn't see me very well and he asks my name 2 times. He says, "Well, so I guess I'll wish you a good night then." He kisses me on the cheek, like we French do, but once again, I'm half naked in my bed, dead scared, and he's in a suit, all dressed. Literally, I don't even know what I could have done. He left after the longest minute saying how he was sorry, and how he would appreciate that I don't tell anyone. And now the phone in my room just rang. I don't know if I still should be scared. Was he just confused by the mistake? I am super scared though, and I can't think right now because my heart is still racing. I just need some rational feedback after this, really. Update. I'm okay. It's about 34 hours later. Update 2. 5 days later, and I don't even know what to say here. This story is so weird that I almost pushed it out of my mind, but my friend reminded me of it last night and now I'm creeped out all over again. I was around 15 or 16 and I was on vacation at Walt Disney World sometime during the summer. My family has the vacation club membership, so we go a few times a year and live close by anyway. We were staying in the vacation club villas, which is a separate building from the main hotel. I brought 2 of my friends, Savannah and Victoria, and we were bored around 2 a.m. so we went down to the gym. It's open 24/7. We weren't even going to work out, just take mirror selfies and mess around with the exercise balls. There was a desk for the spa portion of the gym, or maybe it's a sauna, I don't really remember. But since it was so late, there were no employees, so we were just messing around behind the desk and I had found a notebook. I'm not sure why. I was super annoying at the time, but I decided to write my Twitter and Instagram handles, and so did Savannah. Looking back, I'm pretty sure we could get in trouble since guests aren't supposed to screw around with the desk. I didn't think much of it and we left the gym, and the next morning we checked out of the hotel. On the drive back home, I get a Twitter notification, and it's from a weird account. The creepy thing about this account was it was active for a while, and it had weird pictures of grown men in diapers and other disturbing ones. So did Savannah, and we both sat there looking at each other like, what the heck? The account tweeted us saying something like, "I know who you are and what you've done, and your vacation will end abruptly." They tweeted some more creepy stuff like telling us to watch our backs, but I knew that it was clearly because we had left our names on the notepad. I didn't reply back, and then I noticed a new follower, and it was my name, but the username was similar to the other account. The account started tweeting my address, phone number, and random pictures of me from deep in my social media. They do the same thing with Savannah's name, and at this point, we're both crapping ourselves. I get a text from a random number. I'm assuming that they used a texting app, saying that they were watching us and they knew more than we thought. They even started texting me about my boyfriend at the time and asked me really messed up questions about him. I told him to screw off and I blocked it. I didn't get any more messages, but the Twitter account continued to tweet about me and random details that I know they had had to dig deep to find. I blocked them on that too, and put all my accounts on private. I never got any more messages, but the Twitter accounts are still up there to this day. So whoever that random Disney employee was, I'm glad we didn't actually meet in person. Could have been really bad. It was November of 2017, and this was a time in my life when I severely struggled with alcoholism and drug addiction, as many in the town that I lived do. So please judge my decisions knowing that. Me and my friend were skint most of the time but used to frequent a pub. Now this particular pub had a bad reputation but had recently been taken over by a new landlord who would begin to turn it around. It had an okay crowd, the usual for the type of the working area. The Imperial. On this particular evening, I had to come in at about 50 pounds in cash, so I called my mate and before long we were hitting the town. We started in this particular pub that we'll call the Imperial. I rocked up to the bar and ordered 2 drinks for me and my friend. As I did, I noticed a very scruffy looking woman dressed in disheveled clothing. Naturally, I ignored it and sat down. About an hour went by before my pal noticed the scruffy-looking middle-aged woman was lurking about 3 meters behind us, just staring at us. This gave us the fear and we decided to go out and smoke a cigarette. We headed outside, donned our hats and coats and smoked 2 cigarettes each, before returning to see the woman sat at our table. This wasn't a problem for us. We could just get to another table. But as we walked over, she stood up and returned to her original position, so we took our old table back. Upon sitting down, I see the woman begin to approach the table. She stands behind him and starts touching his shoulder. He turns around and asks, "What are you doing?" She swiftly replies in a very high-pitched voice, "Can I please sit here?" This was when I realized that my friend had completely misheard the question. He believed she had said, "Can I have a ciggy?" So he replied with, "Yeah, sure." She dropped herself down in the seat next to her. It was really awkward in this new-formed threesome. What made it worse is that she just maintained the same overbearing smile, not moving at all. It was with all this that I presumed she may be mentally challenged. My cousins have a similar issue, so I decided to be nice and involved her for a little while. After all, she seemed harmless. This was a mistake. After trying to involve her in the conversation with no luck, I signaled to my friend to go for a cigarette, and she stayed at the table. Outside, me and my friend talked about how awkward it was, and how we wanted to leave and decided to leave the back way without her seeing us. It was at this moment that I realized I had left my phone at the table. I walked over to the table and as she saw me coming back, she grabbed my phone. Playing dumb, I said, "Hey, thanks for your company tonight, but I have to go. You haven't seen my phone, have you?" After saying this, her face changed and the mood took a dark turn. I could feel something was brewing, although her face was still ecstatically smiling. "Why are you leaving? There's no reason to," she said while making the creepiest eye contact I had seen in my entire life. "You can have it for a kiss," she said as she held up my phone. I thought fast and snatched it out of her hand before storming off fast out the door and meeting my friend outside. I was shook and told him to walk fast. Road to the Brunswick. The road outside the Imperial is long and straight and you can basically see it from one end to the other. While we're walking fast for a while before slowing down and then stopping to light a cigarette. While we're stopped, we notice the silhouette of what appeared to be this woman coming towards us at a quick pace. Frightened, we took a corner and took the back streets and alleys, turning at every opportunity that we could. There was no chance she could have followed us, and we even waited to see if she was still coming. After 10 minutes, we started walking to a smaller pub called the Brunswick. We walked and talked about the strangeness of her, but we really forgot about it pretty fast. Upon arriving there, we scanned the room for her just in case and headed to the bar area. Got more drinks and we stayed at the bar. An hour passed and we were both quite drunk, so we decided to leave. This, and I cannot stress this enough, was a huge mistake. We walked outside and around the corner when, perhaps by coincidence, we bumped into her again. She began screaming things about how I should love her and how she had done so much for me. Completely taken by surprise and shock, I watched her run towards me. My friend ran back and watched in horror as she grabbed me and began licking and spitting on my face while she bear hugged me. I managed to slip out of her grip and sprint off onto the main road. Needless to say, I got very drunk that night. I lived in a border town growing up. Mexico was pretty safe at the time, and high school kids going across the border was no big deal, as our parents did it as well. It was the summer before I went off to college, and I worked as a cocktail waitress at a nice club, catering to the white residents of the city, as well as people in the Air Force Base. I was becoming friends with another waitress who was a tall, blonde, blue-eyed girl, well off and whose parents left her by herself at their house by the lake. I was poor and Hispanic, but she was always nice to me. The club closed at 2 a.m., and if we wanted to have fun ourselves, we would have to go to Mexico because at the time, our friends' parties were done. This girl had been dating a rich Mexican guy. She was 18 and he was about 20. He was considered a papi, a richer man. After one of our shifts, my friend asked if we wanted to go with her and her boyfriend to a party in Mexico. I agreed and we were picked up in a beautiful black car by his driver, and he had a couple of other friends with him, all well off and good looking. They took us to a club that knew them. As soon as we walked in, the waiters brought multiple bottles of good quality liquor mixers and garnishes. I had a blast and her friends were kind and respectful. I drank a little bit but not much. We were only there for about an hour when the bars started to close, and the guys suggested that we go to Boys Town. For those who don't know about the US-Mexico border, there is usually a red light district with all the bad stuff you can imagine. But I agreed to go because I felt safe with my current group. Everyone with me was well known in the community and I liked the adventure. I am a bit of a risk taker, and any trouble we would probably be in from cops, we would just give the crooked cops some cash and be on our way. When we take this fancy car through a dark dirt road outside of a small city until we see the flashing lights of Boys Town. It was like a movie set. We go to one of the bars and enjoy the show. It's a mix of drunk college boys, Mexican cowboys, and a desperate woman looking for their mark. I was surprised. There really is a donkey show, but it's not what you think. The whole night was my friend's boyfriend and his friends had treated us to drinks. I was getting drunk and I needed to use the bathroom. I walked down a red-lit hallway and encountered one of the workers, with only a see-through scarf around her hips. She smiled at me and curled her finger to beckon me to a small room. Being the curious girl that I am, I was tempted. She was beautiful with wavy black hair. I smiled and started walking towards her, but I suddenly felt strange, surrounded. I guess is the feeling. I stopped and started to feel very uneasy. She continued to try to lure me into one of these small side rooms, but I shook my head and returned to the table with my friends, where another drink was waiting for me. I took a couple of sips and just felt uncomfortable. I told my friend that I didn't feel so well and asked them to stop buying me more drinks. "This is the scary part," she says. "We haven't been buying your last few drinks." Like nothing, what the heck? I quickly turned to the bar and noticed that several men are looking my way. Someone I didn't know was sending me drinks. I told the group that I had to go and that if we didn't leave, I would make a scene. We left. I headed home and didn't speak. I felt super weird and amped. I hadn't felt like this before or after. I was off and feeling out of control. I got home at about 6 a.m. My mother was waking up and was wondering what I had done. I told her that I had hung out with my friend, her boyfriend, and their friends, and I proceeded to stay wired up for hours, trying to act normal. Now maybe I'm being paranoid, but I think someone was trying to hurt me or trick me. I was a pretty girl who was poor. If I disappeared, so what? Was the worker trying to get my money, or was she luring me into a trap? Who was buying me drinks that ended in me feeling out of control? For the person or persons who may have had a plan for me that night, how could you? I'm going to tell you a story that happened when I was 17. This story still freaks me out so much, and I don't even know what happened that day. I would like to have your opinion on it. It was in November, and my friend Jacob was going to have his birthday for these 17 years. Me being a good friend, I proposed to him to sleep in my house and then go for a walk the next day with friends in the forest. He accepts and everything goes well. He sleeps at my place, and the next day, we leave with friends for 2 hours of road. For the forest, it is a bit far, but at the time, I lived in the city center. After the road, I realized that I forgot my keys to my house at home and that, therefore, the door to my house was still unlocked. But hey, I tell myself that we're in town and that few people often frequent the suburbs to fly. The day is going wild and it's time to go home. I was stressed about knowing if my house had been robbed. But then in the end, I said to myself that there was a little chance. My friend Jacob wanted to spend more time with me before I left for my studies, and so did he. So I accepted that he still slept with me. We walk in and I see that my house is intact, but it was nice and wide open. So I walked around the house and noticed something. The cellar door, which I never opened, was open and there was a white paper on the floor. I quickly realized that we had to call the police and check if there was anyone there, so to reassure us, me and Jacob decided to shout that if the stranger didn't come out, that the police would be taking care of it. I was paralyzed with fear, and I feared that the stranger was coming. Bad news, and the stranger who was in the cellar cried, "You are not at home. Get out of here or I lock you up." Jacob got scared and asked me to come and see if there was the police. And luckily she was there and took him away in a car. The police found kitchen knives, an axe, iron chains, and a board. There was also a white sheet on which was written, "Behind you." I didn't understand from the beginning. The police told me later that the individual had ran away from an asylum. Today, I'm 25 and I always check if I have the key on me or not before I leave my house. This happened to me in 2010. I was a college student at a school in a big city which unfortunately wasn't in the best part of town. At the time, I was living in an off-campus apartment that didn't have dedicated parking spots, so I always tried to park my car alongside either side of the building under a streetlight. However, on this particular day, I was only able to get a spot on the street behind the building. Around midnight, I left my apartment to drive to my then-boyfriend's house in another part of the city. He was a musician and was just getting home from a gig, hence the late-night meetup. I hated being outside in the city alone at night, but I hadn't seen my boyfriend in a while and thought that I could quickly make it to my car without any issue. To get from my apartment to my car, I had to walk out the front door of my building, turn the corner and walk alongside the building, which was the length of and width of a city block, and turn down the back street where my car was parked at. All in all, this should have taken no more than a couple of minutes. As I turn the corner to walk alongside my apartment building, I see a man walking directly towards me. He immediately starts calling out to me and saying, "Hey, hey," but he's far enough up the street that I think I can make it to my car before he got to me. I quicken my pace and so does he. He keeps calling out to me and saying, "Hey, can you help me? I'm homeless and need to get home." Obviously, that made no sense, and the closer he got, the more I could tell that he was drunk, on drugs, or both. He kept getting closer and closer, all the while calling out and asking for money. When I suddenly realized that I couldn't make it to my car before he would make it to me. so I stopped dead in my tracks underneath the streetlight on the side of the building. I always walked with my keys in my hand, so I would never be stuck digging around for them at an inopportune time, much like this one. And thanks to my mom making sure that I was always safe in the city, my keys were complete with a keychain of mace. By this time, the guy was only a foot away from me, aggressively asking for money and telling me that he needed to get home. I told him that I didn't have any money and that I couldn't help him. He moved closer until he was only inches away from me, so I picked up my mace in that moment. The streetlight shone on it perfectly, so this creep saw it and he backed away. To this day, I swear that I had a guardian angel watching over me. This guy could have grabbed me, snatched my purse, or gotten violent, yet the mere sight of my mace was thankfully enough to spook him. He quickly walked past me down the street and sprinted to my car and sped away, completely shaking. Needless to say, I never walked to my car alone at night ever again.